Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Discussing a Murderer. And with me, as always, is the panel. We'll start from the top and say, hello, Kelly. How are you doing?
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be here.
And Dr. Silkman, welcome back.
Thank you very much there, Jeff. And I'd like to welcome my fellow panel members and everybody in chat. Great to be here. Thank you.
And Big Jeff, it looks like you're in a new background there.
Well, Jeff, it's the same old background. It's just I have to use a different computer because of my ongoing audio problems. So I'm using my wife's Mac computer that I'm going to hide from Dr. Silkman in case he tries to smash it. And I'm going to keep it nice and safe because it's hers. And I hope everybody in the United States had a great Thanksgiving. I know I sure did. And I'm looking forward to getting it on. Episode 3, talk about a miracle. That's a man miracle number 4, us getting to episode 3 in season 2. Let's get to it.
That's right, Big Jeff. Let's get to it. And the name of this episode is A Legal Miracle. So with that said, let's lead on over to Jack and welcome Jack as well.
Illegal miracles. I like that. That's pretty fantastic, actually. Greetings to my fellow panel members and everyone in the live chat. Agree with Big Jeff's sentiments about the good Thanksgiving and giving thanks for what we have, staying humble. Let's get to it.
You know, they wanted me. They didn't want nobody else. I think that's why they didn't do investigation. But here now, as long as I got Kathleen, I'm kind of relaxed on all of that. I'm putting my faith all in her.
What I found with all of my clients is they have to know what you're doing, what you're thinking, and they need to be part of that decision-making process. So I talk to him about all of that, and I think that helps him psychologically. He's amazed by the stuff that I've discovered. He's just flabbergasted. He's like, just go ahead and get me out of here. And he talks about getting out, which that pleases me that he thinks about that.
Did you see her folder? What it said, the sort of what you could read. It said loof tracks. So she's looking at the dog. She was showing him the dog reports. I don't know. It's the first time I've noticed that. I don't know if it's particularly insightful about anything, but she was reading about the dogs.
Oh, yeah, nice insight there, Big Jeff. Nice catch. I think just previously, a couple episodes ago, is when she was out with Chuck in the back and talking about the dog. So I'm assuming that some of this filming is, we're seeing it out of order, out of chronology. So maybe that's what we saw just from a little bit earlier in the episode.
Yeah, and so I suppose it's worth saying too. There was a time in the not too distant past, where Stephen, I think, was getting a little bit frustrated with the pace at which things were getting filed and whatnot. But I think it's very fair to say that there are not lawyers parachuting into Wisconsin to take up Stephen's case, right? I mean, it's good that he's putting all of his faith in Kathleen. I'm not sure there's anybody else in the waiting in the wings, if you will. When you hear noise about, he's got to get rid of Zellner, this and that, take that for what it is. It's noise because you have the world's best exoneration lawyer in your corner, and if you think there's somebody better, or you think there's somebody willing to take up this case for free and spend another $700,000, I think you should think again.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point there, Big Jeff. I just want to, the other thing is, how much would it cost for you to pay Kathleen Zellner for this case? We know that other people have paid out of pocket to her, and it's exorbitant amounts. It's just huge amounts of money. So that's the other, major point that you bring up, Big Jeff, is she's doing this pro bono. She's doing this for free. And so every scientific testing that she puts forward is out of her pocket.
Exactly right. I mean, and Jack has a better idea, I think, of how much that she spent on this. And when you talk about what is the value of her services? There's how many people in the whole world has the skills that she has, right? I mean, suppose she was a surgeon, right? For example, and she was the only one who could do an operation that you needed to save your life. How much could she charge? Whatever the hell she wanted, right? And she'd have a zillion people begging her to do it. And that's kind of what this case is, so.
Yeah, to add to how much she spent, the last I heard, this is unofficial, but kind of the running things that I've heard here and there, 850,000. That's a lot of dough.
Yep, I heard of a similar value, and you've got to think about the risk in a way that Kathleen Zellner personally took for her and her law firm, spending all that money, her own personal money, by hiring all those experts. So, when you think about it, as Big Jeff alluded to, she's a high-profile lawyer, and I would dare say she would receive probably hundreds of letters a year from prisoners who are saying, look, please take my case, please take my case. So certainly Kathleen Zellner didn't have to take on Stephen, right? She certainly didn't need the attention, and she's spending her own money on that. And as a consequence of that, as has been shown in the episode so far, her and her team of researchers have uncovered a huge amount of evidence. And isn't that remarkable, guys, that she had a folder of the evidentiary material that her team has uncovered with her. So she's clearly always in communicating with Stephen what her experts have found. And that's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
Well, and to add a little bit to that, we all know, I mean, we see it in, Making Murder Part 2. I don't remember which episode, the animation of showing the dog tracks. And then we step up again to the Yora's interactive 3D map. And it is so clear how much time the dog actually spent off the property as opposed to on it. Crazy.
Yeah, and just on that, on Eurus's interactive map, which is brilliant, and I urge everyone to have a look at it. This is what needed to have been done actually in trial. Do you agree, guys? Where you can visually show the judge and the jury all the major findings and all the important landmarks, right? Where things were found.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Brother yours.
Yep. And the jury and the judge would have seen, wait a minute, if Teresa and her RAV4 would never have meant to have left the property, why is all this activity, police chatter, etc., why is it predominantly off the property? What is that telling us? And that's why I think what we're doing now, how we're looking at MAM 2 is so good, because it's looking at the evidence in a different light.
Whole thing is mom and dad. They're almost 80, and I don't know. Anything can happen. And that's what I'm scared about. I know they want to be a happy family again like we used to be. I want to see if I can put that back together. That'll be hard a little bit, but figure we all leave Wisconsin, we'll be all right. Build me a big house where I'm on one side and they're on the other side, so I can take care of them. Then go as long as I got a couple of vehicles so he can work on them too. Can't take him from that because that's all what he used to do.
Don't you think it's rather remarkable that the so-called dreams that Stephen had for both himself, Jody, of course, and his family were very, very simple ones, right? We'll build houses together. We'll make sure that my dad works on cars, etc. There weren't big, grand dreams like we're going to build a 20-room mansion. We're going to buy all these luxury cars. None of that. absolutely none of that, which goes to show, I don't think he was thinking big bucks, and the fact that potentially, if everything had gone well, the millions of dollars that were coming his way were going to change him in a significant manner. He just wanted to be with his mum and dad, his family, and keep everything simple. I think that's important.
I felt the same way watching this, Dr. Silkman. I'm glad you mentioned that. And it just hurts even more knowing that he has lost a Dolores at this point. Steven's personal life really was rough there, from what I heard after losing Dolores. And so this stuff, watching it a second time through, really brings it through another lens.
I was going to say that I very much agree with Dr. Silkman, and I was having a discussion on the Foul Play Discord site with someone, and we were talking about the 1985 case, which, as you know, is one of my favorite subjects. And the topic was, how much money would Stephen have gotten in the lawsuit? And there are people who are saying, that he probably would have settled for 10 million. And my opinion was that, I think he was more interested in getting this out, sort of bringing this to the light of day. I'm not sure that he would have taken the state's hush money, because his dreams are very simple. Like Dr. Silkman said, he's not interested in a new yacht or a new Rolls Royce or his own private jet. He has very modest dreams, very simple dreams. And I think he wanted more than anything to sort of to expose what happened to him in 1985, to the public at large, so this wouldn't happen again. So the corrupt sheriff of Manitowoc County wouldn't, and DA of Manitowoc County would not get away with this again. I'm not sure he would have taken hush money to sunset. Maybe he would have, but I'm not so sure.
I agree with you, Big Jeff. I really think it's the principle of the matter. I mean, when you think about Stephen's early childhood, he had a very troubled childhood. We know that. We know that the things that he did. He wasn't a person that lived in a luxurious home, in a luxurious setting, right? It was very, very simple means. And you don't try and tell me that he was now thinking big with the potential money that he could have got from the settlement. The important thing, and I agree with Big Jeff, the important thing here was to teach Kacerik, Vogel, and the others from the MTSO a lesson as, guys, do not try this again to anybody else, right? And it's a real tragedy that both Kacerik and Vogel never got to those depositions, right? And we all know how it turned out. Stephen got charged for the murder of Teresa Horbach, and everything came to a sudden stop, which means that, if corruption is still continuing, if it's an old boys club, it's still going on in the background. And to me, that's the true tragedy. It wasn't the money, as Big Jeff alluded to. It was the principle of the matter. Even if Stephen had settled for $1, right? The mere factor that both Kacerik and Vogel would have got the justice that they deserved, and the exposure, especially from the media. You could imagine all the media attention that would have been on Kacerik and Vogel. That would have been priceless for Stephen, his family, and not forgetting what happened to Penny and the victims of Gregory Allen. Right, guys? Justice would have been served.
Go fishing together and get on a pontoon and let her drive it. I want to make them happy as long as they're here.
There you go. You want to be in the sun?
No.
You don't want to be in the sun? No. You got a big sweater on. Look at her. You got her buttoned right down.
Nice and comfortable inside. You're feeling.
Right there. Go fishing.
Happy 54th birthday, Stephen. Best wishes for an amazing day surrounded by your family and those who love you. Tell Steve happy birthday from his UK supporters. Texas, California, Scotland, South Africa, Brazil, Western Australia. Hopefully next year he'll be able to celebrate with you on the outside. I can't wait to tell him.
So it's very, very interesting that Sandy is reading out all those positive comments. And this is what drives the guilters insane. And I'm sure the law enforcement are not too happy about it either.
It's not that I know, I think I even alluded to the fact I don't know the Averys, I don't know the Dassies or anyone involved, but that's not really the point. And I'm not necessarily a fan of Stephen Avery. I'm a fan of telling the truth.
I think that as reasonable people, we can all be fans of fundamental fairness. And even if you think Stephen Avery is guilty, you really need to take a hard look at his trial and some of the things that the state has done and some of the decisions that they've made regarding his case, and ask yourself, are these decisions, one, fair? Even if you think they're fair, are they eroding our rights? You know what I mean? Because now all of a sudden in Wisconsin, you can take the work product of a law enforcement expert, and you can just bury that in certain circumstances. So that's okay to do as long as ... And you can thank the Stephen Avery case for that. So when that happens to your brother or your sister or yourself or your father or your son, and they start burying shit, it turns out it's okay to do. They did it in the Avery case because it ended up not mattering. So it was fine for them to do it. It wouldn't have changed the jury's mind. We can just know that from looking into our fucking crystal ball. Then that is really what matters. It's like Jack said, it's about the truth, and the truth leads to fundamental fairness.
Yeah, this recent open records request I did, I say recent, it was August 25th. Like this, as most of you know now, I got a couple of records finally Monday, and I got a letter from Sheriff Wiegert. I didn't get an email. I sent it. I began this. This was a digital open records request. I didn't get a reply from him through email. I got a letter. But the funny thing is, one of the things that I requested is a specific recording of Brendan that no one has. So I requested it, and they come, and I expected it would have to be converted because I figured it was on cassette, microcassette, whatever. Came back and said, yeah, when I got the reply, that one and a couple other things would have to be converted. Fine. Well, then I get this letter from Wiegert, and he says that first he says, to try to excuse it, that the DCI lab is not converting any cassette audios at this point right now. I'm not even sure what that means. They're not converting anything right now. And then he goes and get to this legal speak of the balancing test and all that bullshit. Ongoing criminal investigation. And I'm thinking to myself, well, what the fuck is going on with Brendan? There's no investigation on Brendan in his case. His case is over. It's closed. There is no court documents, local, city, state, or federal at all. So what is he talking about? What he's trying to do is lump Brendan's case in with Stephen, and they're two separate cases. Sorry. You got to give up the record, dude. That's what my reply is going to be.
Right? It's what open records means. Yep. They are legally obliged to give that to you.
Yep. But he's saying because of this balancing.
Right?
Sure. I mean, they charge $1 for a DVD, which is actually pretty cheap. They used to charge, I think they used to charge $5. Manitowoc charges $10, but they only charge $1, which is fine. I didn't even pay the $5, but the point being is that this is Brendan's case, not Stephen's. So he's trying to mash the two together, and I'm not going to let him get away with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's called obfuscation, right? So basically, he's giving you a lot of bullshit, so he doesn't have to hand over anything, because he's no dummy. He's realized the intense scrutiny that every part of this case has been put under. And he's absolutely horrified that there are researchers out there now dissecting what happened to Brendan word by word. And don't forget, guys, there are academics, law professors, law enforcement agencies that are using the interrogation techniques of Fassbender and Wiegert as an example of what not to do. And this is all going to fall back on Wiegert and Fassbender. He knows it. So hence Jack 61. He's going to try and prevent handing you over anything further.
Well, yeah, it tells me that there's something on that cassette that they don't want us to hear. That's what it tells me. Because this recording, this video of Wiegert, I'm not Wiegert, but of Remacher, it had to be converted too. So they can convert a VHS tape or whatever the hell it was, but they can't convert a simple micro cassette to a digital format. Give me a break. Those things cost like a converter costs like $30 on Amazon. It's ridiculous.
Yes,
Hi.
I really don't feel good.
Are you sick?
Yeah. I could go see Steven.
Yeah.
What's going on? Is it slowing up again?
No, I haven't been doing that, but I really don't feel good. I've had this since Wednesday. Carla said she'll meet you up there.
Okay, well, I will see her there then. And all right, you just rest.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I will tell Steven happy birthday for you and that you love him.
Yeah, okay.
I'll tell Stephen that you're going up there on Monday then.
Yeah,
I'll have him give you a call later.
yeah, tell him to call me. Tell him happy birthday.
I will.
How does it feel to be, what are you, 54?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Mom was sick.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Huh.
Was all right. I ate some cakes and that, and pizza thing, a couple bites of ice cream, but then with Ma sick, it was a little hard. I'm just scared that she ain't gonna make it till I get out. People send me pictures of her, and it gets me upset and mad, and because I can't be there. And
It's excruciating having the time, slip away and just hoping that, they'll be okay. So just think of it like as a bad day, but it's not. You'll be better, So you gotta keep going, You gotta keep going. Just keep thinking about building the house, taking her there. That's the part of it you're going to be there for.
It's sad watching this part now, knowing that the worst outcome happened, and that was obviously Avery didn't make it in time for him to get out and experience another life of freedom with her son.
I couldn't agree more. It's pretty rough watching this part. Absolutely, Kel.
The thing that compels me or keeps me going is when I believe that other people have just gotten it totally wrong. And that I find I just can't let that go, particularly when it's cost someone their life, when it's so screwed up, when it's been done, the investigation has been done so incompetently, when the crime scene makes no sense, the theory is idiotic. That just, I mean, I just cannot not.
You know, we've spent a long time, Big Jeff, Jack 61, Kelly, you, Jeff. We've spent many, many years looking at the crime scene photos. And what is more shocking is what has not been shown and what has not been photographed. So, what is absent in the official record is just as telling as what has been found and put forward. And I'm not sure whether the other panel members want to discuss it, but to me, Kathleen Zellner, in one or two sentences, has captured it beautifully in a nutshell. The crime scene, the stage theory makes no freaking sense at all.
We can't forget about the help that the law enforcement got from state, and that is also the state troopers, along with the DCI state police, and then which is the part of Department of Justice, and then even from the EDTA. But a lot of these actions, we can't forget a lot of these actions that were taken by those in authority with hands-on. We've said it many times. Our system is only as good as the people in place at any particular time. They were allowed to do whatever and get away with it. That's the problem. The checks and balances did not work. Jeff mentioned civil rights a while ago, and it's a complete trampling. And I'm telling you, again, I've said a lot. The due process for me, just when I watched Making a Murderer the first time, that's what I walked away with. Due process was thrown out the window. It was eliminated. And I didn't know anything of what I saw in the documentary. But I felt like certainly, unknowing about Steve for sure, but certainly with Brendan, he screwed. His civil rights were completely trampled, in my opinion. So, and then help from the media. I can't forget about that. And the crime lab, which is another arm. So how can one poor guy that lives on a junkyard, the people that literally have, the little bit they do have, you heard him earlier, he just want a little patch of land, get some cars, work on a little car with his dad, probably even his brothers at some point, his sister, maybe even try to repair the damage with his first marriage with his kids and stuff. He wasn't asking for anything else, just a regular life. And boy, oh boy, did that not work out.
Well, just two comments. I mean, how can you not agree with Kathleen when she says the state's narrative is idiotic, right? It is idiotic, right? The throat was cut on the bed, but there's no blood anywhere, right? She was shot 10 times in the garage, but there's no backsplatter of the blood and anywhere to be found. It is, you have to be an idiot to believe that is the way that it happened. Number one, and number two, 100% agree, Jack. It's our rights that are getting eroded, right? So there to get him, right, to put him away, and Brendan, they're trampling on us. And when in this day and age, what they're doing is the process itself is becoming the punishment. Because in order to be able to defend yourself, if Stephen doesn't have the means to do it, but take an average person who kind of sort of has the means, what are they supposed to do? Sell their house, sell their car, to get the defense, to do the testing that they need to combat the state's practically infinite amount of money. The process itself is the punishment, and that is a tremendous imbalance, and that is the wrong place to be in a fair legal system. Something I think really needs to be done about that.
100% agree there, Big Jeff. And we mustn't forget their entire property was trashed. Every one of their vehicles was broken into, right? They opened up the hoods, they opened up the bonnets, they took apart cars, they went through the trailers, they took thousands of photographs, 99% of which were completely useless and had nothing to do with anything. So what they basically did is they went through that entire property like a tornado. They completely destroyed it. And Jack 61 was correct. I think he made a point whereby when Jody went back to collect her belongings in the trailer, everything was thrown about, everything was strewn about, TVs were on the ground, everything. They basically dehumanized all of them. And you know what is so shocking? We can see that through the documentary. So as Big Jeff said, if law enforcement can come in literally and take over your house, it means they could do it to anybody. And how many times have we heard of cases where law enforcement go in, guns are blazing, shooting people, killing people, only to find out they went to the wrong address? Oops. So hence, you can see here, guys, the importance of making a murderer. It really wasn't only about a murder investigation. It's basically about the erosion of your rights, right? They were off the property for a long period of time. They weren't permitted to come back on. They were on there for a huge amount of time, and they took the place apart.
Yeah, that brings up another point that I was actually thinking about a few minutes ago when we were discussing this part. They literally occupied from the 5th until the 12th. Basically 8 days they were there, and they were not allowed on the property. And typically that, I can't say that's not allowed, but Big Jeff maybe can speak more to this than I can. When a search warrant is served on you and your residence, you're allowed to watch what they remove, and you be told immediately. But they wouldn't allow that. They ran them off the property. So that was another part of making a murderer. That was very apparent that basically they seized the Avery salvage yard. I can't really call it a compound, but they seized that entire property and they had their way with it.
It's not the right thing that you don't have the ability to oversee what they're taking, what they're looking at, the destruction that they're wreaking, cutting up your couch, cutting up your mattresses, taking your knives, all the things that they do. Sadly, I think it is. I don't think that they stepped outside the letter of the law. And in the pretrial, you'll probably recall that they actually did. Dean and Jerry did challenge the duration of the search warrant as being absolutely outrageous, right? For that amount of time that they had the property, it was unprecedented. They have a lot of fucking nerve, right? Saying, "Oh, he had 5 days to clean up," but because they can't count, and all of a sudden, law enforcement has 8 days on the property to plant whatever the hell they want, right? It's just unbelievably imbalanced the power that they have. So I think they technically they stayed with the letter of the law. But I 100% agree with you that there's something imbalanced about the power that they have, the unchecked power that they have in that dimension.
Well, that brings up another part of how many entries into Stephen's residence, which I have a real problem with. That's something else that I noticed, and I've gotten more into it. Now, I haven't done a massive, research paper on search warrant entries into properties in the United States, but I dare say that I did do some, and I'm telling you guys, typically they get one shot at going into somebody's house. So they try to be all inclusive about, when they go in. Well, that didn't happen here. So they were writing these warrants. Well, they're going to go in and get the computer. They're going to go in and get blah, blah. They were very singular. And this guilter had the gall to say, oh, well, they were just being thorough. First time I've heard a truther say that law enforcement didn't want to be thorough. I'm like, if they wanted to be thorough, they would have had one warrant that would have encompassed everything, even if it had taken them a day, even 2, and looked at everything, and they're done. You don't get to go back in and say, oh, well, I got to have, because I can't connect Stephen or Teresa to Stephen, then go back in 5 months later, and they suddenly find, voila, item FL. It's complete bullshit. It does not pass the smell test at all. It just doesn't.
I was gonna say it just shows you how the people at the crime lab are interpreting the sort of the unsaid or implied messages that they're getting from the law enforcement sort of as a code, right? Go search it again. Put her
Correct.
in the house or the garage.
100% correct.
How else are we supposed? I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's just 100% how I interpret it.
No, that's 100%
Yep.
correct. And not only did the state have all these things at their disposal, they also had the crime lab. And we all know who put her hand up and said, I want to be in charge of this investigation. I want to handle all the forensics. And that's someone, Sharik O'Hain, who had a long-standing history with Stephen Avery dating back from 1985. And it was her hair evidence that was in part a large factor of getting Stephen put in prison the first time round. And she did the exoneration DNA testing in 2003. Lo and behold, she puts her hand up front and center to be involved in handling all the forensic evidence. And as Big Jeff alluded to, she got phone calls from Tom Fassbender, and Lord knows how many people whispered in her ear saying, we've got to make sure that we find the quote unquote appropriate evidence against him. And like a miracle, as Big Jeff says, he came falling down from the sky just when you wanted it.
Not be drawn to that. I just really am. So one of the things that we've really focused on are the burn barrels. So Kira, why don't you tell me where you're at just in your analysis and review of the burn barrels?
Yeah, on November 6th, they pick up the 4 barrels from behind the Dassey trailer. They bring those in. They number them barrel number 1 through number 4. Barrel number 2, of course, is the one they end up finding bones in. It's actually searched by crime lab personnel on the 7th or the 8th, but they didn't really find anything of note. Then on the 12th, it gets searched again for an unknown sort of reason. And that's when bones are first found in that barrel.
Yeah, which, I mean, that seems really odd.
Yeah.
So how are those issues handled at trial by the defense attorneys?
It's really interesting. Bones being found in barrel number 2. Defense does not ask the crime lab personnel who testify about it, how do you think you would have missed these human bones in this barrel? They don't ask the agent who eventually finds the bones, did you know this was previously searched? Why did you go back and search it again? Why did you get it out of storage and do that?
Yeah, given that that should be such key.
Why did you get it out of storage and do it again? Why did you go back to the... It's really good questions here.
It's a recurring theme, right? That's what I would call it, a recurring theme.
Yeah, of course. But the other important thing is you showed a diagram, a video still. If you have a look at the burn barrels themselves, what you note is that the contents of the burn barrel has been placed in a looks like a blue tarp. So they obviously must have emptied the contents of the burn barrel, placed it in a blue tarp, zipped it up and put it back in the burn barrel. And you can actually see the picture. Now, what is interesting, of course, is that you can easily do a switcheroo. Just move one container into the other and say, yep, that's the contents of burn barrel number 2. And as we will find out very quickly, is that yonder burn barrel number 2 contained human burnt with cut bones. In yonder burn barrel number 2, I believe there were 4 human cremains that Dr. Eisenberg classified as distinctively being human. And that's a big, big problem for the state.
Yeah, just to add one final thing, talking about the barrels and going back years now, looking at this and seeing, and I never tried it really myself, but there have been several really good researchers that have tried to track the barrels and their movement. And I'm telling you, based on the reports that were written and submitted, it can't be done. It absolutely cannot be done completely with 100% accuracy. And that's wrong.
One of the,
Sorry.
yeah, one of those researchers was moving on 04. And
that's right.
I know that she had last I knew she had cancer, but was still occasionally watching. If you're still out there, I hope you're winning your battle, and God bless, because I think some of the research that she did was some of the seminal research on the barrels themselves.
It was
100% correct. We've had several discussions with her, and her work is exemplary. And what you find with the burn barrels, and I think everyone on the panel will agree, there's some real funny, shady business going on with those burn barrels. It was like a shell game, right? And the biggest thing that gives me goosebumps just thinking about it is Stephen Avery's burn barrel and all the shenanigans that went on with that, because the guilters love to point out, oh, well, what the hell is Teresa Horbach's electronics in that burn barrel? But it's not as easy as you think. It's not as crystal clear as you think. And remember, Jack 61, there was another burn barrel at Cuss Road, and they even put police tape around it. So
that's right.
You just want, and there was a dog hit as well on that barrel. So you just wonder where the contents and where the barrels ended up. This is not clear.
Deer camp. And the deer camp, and they put a guard on that, remember, overnight until they got it out of there.
There were a bunch of them at there. There are at least 3 of them at deer camp.
I think you said it, the right way to say it, Dr. Silkman, is how you said it, and that's it wasn't like a shell game, it was a shell game. And that's what you'd move these pieces here, move these pieces here, change the label, done.
I mean, there was a burn site in the quarry. The dispatch calls show how they're picking up bones. I mean, what does it take to just dump it in when nobody's looking, right? The contents of some bone pile that they're putting, picking up somewhere else in the burn barrel. Like, what type of evidentiary chain did they keep? Those burn barrels, they all look exactly alike. Didn't they ship one of them back to
yes.
the property?
Yes,
what the hell was the point of that? Did we ever get a good explanation of why that?
Yep, they got taken off the property and then they got returned. So there's some really funny business going on. And I believe one researcher found a smoking burn barrel in the quarry during the flyover. Guys, do you remember that? There was an image of a smoking burn barrel in the quarry.
But don't worry, they didn't have to inspect that or take a picture of that, or there was no suspicion around that. It's just it's ridiculous sometimes piecing together their nonsense.
Key evidence.
Yeah. An interesting thing too is that the same agent and his partner who find those bones, earlier that day, they went to the deer camp. At trial, he says he saw a couple of barrels. His report only mentions one. The report is written 16 days later. It's curiously brief.
Yes,
no times of arriving or leaving are given. Same for the report of visiting a site on what he calls the Rodot sand and gravel lot, which he claims not to recall at trial. So on the 12th, the same agent and his partner goes to deer camp, goes to another site, comes back. They search barrel number 2 again, which has already been searched, and find human bones in it.
How bad is the investigator before you that searched it and didn't find it, and you come along and but this time it's magically there. There's that word again, miracle. I think I'm going to use a legal miracle.
I have a question for you, though, and it comes up quite a little bit. But let's say that they did go back and plant stuff in the Dassey burn barrel number 2. Why would they put it in that one? Why not just put it in Stevens? So then my question is to you guys, why put it in the Dassey burn barrel?
My answer to that, I think that's an awesome question, Kel. And at least they were, they're not completely Keystone cops, right? So what they tried to do is they put it in a barrel that was readily corroborated by the testimony of Josh Rodot himself, who said he saw a fire coming out of a burn barrel that they exaggerated, and we're gonna hear how Verdant himself said they made me exaggerate it. Stephen's burn barrel, if you scroll back to the other picture, is more in front of his house, really much closer to where the Barb's van was parked and Teresa's car was parked. Not very visible from where Verdant could see it. If you want to show that there were shenanigans going on, or if you want to try and frame a narrative, if you will, you need to put that you need to put those remains in the same burn barrel, or one of the four burn barrels, and that was co-located. That's visible from the point where Verdant could actually see them on his ingress into the property at that time.
The Yonder burn barrels were the ones would have been in direct view for Josh Redont, because they are, if I'm looking at a picture now, maybe we can put it up at some stage, but Stephen's burn barrel probably would have been out of sight because it's more towards, actually the burn barrel was close to where the Dodge van was. Right? It was very, very close to that. But the four Yonder burn barrels would have been in direct sight of Josh Redont. But here's the big issue, right? And this is something even I can't explain. We know that Bobby Dassey had butchered a deer, and he was asked, and Jack 61 will back me up on this, he was asked what he did with the heads of the deer. And he said, we put them in the burn barrel and we burn them. And what is very, very interesting is that in Yonder burn barrel number 2, there were indeed non-human bones and human bones. So the question is, were they co-burned in order to disguise the smell, or were whoever did the planting, were they unaware that Yonder burn barrel number 2 had human cremains in there at all? So we don't know the sequence of events that actually took place. Were the content switched over? Was that Yonder burn barrel number 2? Was that really at the deer camp? Because remember, there were hunters there. And if they got rid of cremains, animal cremains by burning them, how do you then explain why Yonder burn barrel number 2 has both human and non-human bones? That's a mystery. And you know what Ken Kratz said? Ken Kratz said, Stephen picked up 4 of the larger bones, which he couldn't crush, and he walked over to Yonder burn barrel number 2 and dumped them in there. That's the most ridiculous, insidious explanation I've ever heard in my life. These bones, remember, are only a couple of centimeters long. They weren't big at all.
Isn't this a little interesting little picture? Just thinking about the burn barrels, and I remember, I think it was
sure is.
Pete Moss sent me this. He has some others too that he got, but this one stuck out. I thought I'd share with everyone for those that hadn't seen it. Out front towards in front of Stephen's trailer. Isn't that what this is?
Yeah, it's near the. That's just opposite to where the Yonder van was, on the other side, and near that burn barrel is the cornfield, which you can see at the back, and in front of that burn barrel is the gravel road.
Yes, that's exactly where I thought it was. Yeah.
So if you view that a crime is committed when a case is fabricated, it's as if the criminal is documenting what he's doing. And so what's really almost amusing is to see the stupid stuff they put in the reports that ultimately is their undoing. Significantly with the burn pit, they don't find anything on the 6th, on the 7th, and then magically on the 8th, the bones suddenly appear in the burn pit. I mean, they're so obviously planted. They write the report that on the 7th, the cadaver dogs alert on an area that they think is a burial site west of the Avery property, right off of Cuss Road. And then on the 8th, the cadaver dogs alert by the berm in Stephen's backyard. That tells you probably how the bones were carried over.
most likely on the 7th.
Were you asked to do anything else on the 7th, Sergeant?
September, I think it's 14th, 2006, Tom Fowler wrote a reply to a motion that Buting and String had filed, trying to explain how busy these cops were, blah, 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 and talking about they had found bones at this London burial site at Cuss Road. They found bones, and there's no reports about that at all. So I think she hit the nail on the head without saying directly in the camera that, and I'm sure she probably read the report, but without coming straight across and accusing them of, taking those bones, which she kind of did. Just want to point that out.
Kathleen also hits on the point that I made in a few episodes ago about clearly the bones were not there the entire time. They came after the 5th. So she's saying that it appears for her at this stage that they came in probably on the 7th. And we know that no family member and certain members of the public were able to go back onto that Avery salvage yard. So it doesn't seem like it was more of an outside source that could have been bringing it in to do the planting in terms of the family and such. Of course, that doesn't eliminate, the suspicious around Ryan Hilligus and, Scott Blowdorn being able to go there and stuff. But I'm focusing more on the family side because they were completely locked out of the Avery salvage yard. So if that is what Kathleen was thinking in this moment, and the evidence points to that is how it all came about, then it kind of eliminates any family members framing Stephen Avery because they didn't have the opportunity to do this planting. It does fall back on law enforcement.
Well, I 100% agree with that, Kel. The point that I wanted to bring up, first, I mean, I've personally sat in on 4-hour podcasts related to Cuss Road because there's a lot to talk about when you start talking about Cuss Road. But I have to say that one of my favorite things, related to the discovery of bones, is that the cadaver dog, hit on the shovel that they were using, right? These cadaver dogs are not prone to mistakes, right? They're 99% accurate on these things, and to try and diffuse the hit that the cadaver dog made on the shovel, they showed the same shovel. Trust me, to other cadaver dogs who said, they didn't hit, so the dog must have made a mistake in this case. That is just so unbelievable to me because dogs don't lie. So anyway, just the whole Cuss Road story, all the evidence shows up after Cuss Road. That really ought to tell you something. And the cadaver dog story to me is extremely telling of at least pseudo proof or validation that there was something nefarious discovered at Cuss Road.
Yep, 100% agree, Big Jeff. And we mustn't forget that there was a lot of dog activity between Cuss Road and Stephen Avery's burn pit. So the dogs were definitely very, very interested in that stretch of land, the cornfield between Stephen's property, his trailer, the burn pit, and Cuss Road. And also, remember, they also were very interested in the road that led up to the deer camp. And we mustn't forget that Jerry Pagel prevented I think it was the scent dog from going past the crime scene tape. So they were showing a lot of interest and activity on areas off the Avery salvage site. And that's very, very interesting in itself.
I dug out a few more of these photos that probably most haven't seen. Some of us have, but because they've been around for a while. But these holes in this barrel, I'm sure, is where they've been, target practice and so forth. Because you can look at them; they're varying sizes. But I kind of blew this one up a little bit, and then there's I think one.
Jack, I think it's two reasons, because you want to shoot something with your gun, but also that helps with the aeration. It helps getting the airflow in your burn barrel.
That's right.
You want to put a few holes in there actually. So that's what I see.
You got to have it, or your fire will smother. You got to have that free flow of oxygen.
You notice in that picture, you can see that it's sitting on a couple bricks, like flat paver bricks. It looks like, and that's because you want to be able to get airflow underneath as well. So it's a very well designed burn barrel designed to burn things, right? Like
and it can get extremely hot.
Burn barrel with a nice brick setup there, so you get that up off the ground and you get some aeration in that burn barrel. Got the holes. It looks standard to me. Seen 100, seen one, seen 100. You know.
Dehan said many times that he was very surprised on how effective a burn barrel was to burn a human being to bone fragments. And you're correct. There's been demonstrations on YouTube where people have actually added an oxygen supply to a burn barrel, just blowing air into it. And you're right.
Oh, if you get a bellows going into a burn barrel, you can get that thing cherry red.
Yep, it's a turbo. They called it a turbo burn barrel. And what is remarkable is that it was smokeless, no signs of smoke. And so what we're meant to believe here is that somehow Stephen Avery put a tire on top of Teresa Halbach's electronics and burnt it, right? That's the implication because it was Siders who found them. Yeah, and he took
the tires ain't going to fit the burn barrel, you know?
He took that. The problem is that no one saw any black smoke coming from Stephen Avery's burn barrel that smelt like rubber.
Well, it's about that time, of the show to wrap it up. So we'll see if Big Jeff can get his.
It is time to wrap up. So, it's really good to see Kathleen Zellner continue to dismantle the state's case. It's really good to talk about the barrels because, as was alluded to in the episode by the panel, the actual movings and whatnot of the bird barrels are extremely hard to track through the actual evidence records. And there's obviously the huge potential for shenanigans when you lose sort of the evidentiary control over them, right? The sort of the path or the chain of custody, as they say. So it was a good episode. We heard a lot from Kathleen about the types of things that she's using to that she wants to use to attack the state's case, and it's the stuff that probably the people on this panel saw that convinced us that the state's case was idiotic, to quote the word that Kathleen used. So to me, I still stand with Kathleen. I don't believe the state's narrative. I believe 100% that Stephen was framed, and I think that we continue to do the research. Jack, I applaud the work that you do on Reddit. I don't think it's meaningless. If you see one of Jack's posts on Reddit, thumb up it, right? Because that's what's going to happen. The objective of these podcasts is the same of the objective of the Reddit's posts. It is to reach people who are maybe just looking into this case for the first time and wondering what's going to go on with the state's new filing. People are going to say, "Oh my God, is he still in jail? What's the most recent thing on the case?" I'm going to go to the recent podcasts. I'm going to go to the Reddit post for the people who've been researching this. It's not in vain. Thumbs up his post. So that's the thing that comes to the top. Not the he said, she said arguments that these Reddit things inevitably devolve into, but they're going to read the most upvoted comments. And if the comments of the solid truthers like Jack, like Joris, and even occasionally myself are actually read by reasonable people looking to investigate the case. That's how we win, by building the army to expose the shenanigans, the corruption, the erosion of civil rights. So that's where I am today. And again, on to the next.
Well, thank you very much, Big Jeff. That's a nice little holiday message for us. Keep us straight, keep us honest. Uh, Jack, if you wouldn't give us your wrap up comments.
Much appreciation for the kind words from Big Jeff. I really appreciate that. My goal's always been, I guess it's kind of, it's expounded as time has went on, but, looking for the truth, because it's a, kind of a mystery, that kind of thing, you want to know more, and knowing that, shit's been hid from us. Jeff has got a great point though, because a lot of people, they don't really have time to do anything like what we do on a regular basis. So the holiday time, which was, if you remember, is Making a Murder hit right before Christmas 2015 and exploded. People were at home. They were like, God, and it exploded. So again, he's right. These various Reddit posts, I don't post that much, and I appreciate that, Big Jeff. It is a point of frustration at times trying to argue with, and I try not to argue with these people too much. But TikTok Manitowoc is kind of I won't say it's necessarily a safe haven, but it's a good place to go for people to go and truly interested in hearing the full truth, because we list it all. We don't shy away from any of it, while the other side does. We want all of it out. They don't want anything past the trial. They don't want to hear anything post conviction, because to them, hey, it didn't happen at trial, so therefore it doesn't matter. Well, then why are you here? Why are you here arguing about anything? If it doesn't matter, move on. Let us talk about it. Anyway, back to this episode. Kathleen laid it out, I think, very well. I think she came just short of saying what I just talked about a few minutes ago. There's absolutely no doubt. And November 7th was a big fine for them, right, wrong, or indifferent. November 8th, holy shit. As Doc alluded to a few minutes ago, things fell out of the sky. It was a bonanza day for them. We got keys being found. We got bones being found, and but they got problems with that they tried to bury, and that is the quarry and Cuss Road. That shit was barely talked about. If you look at a photo of Cuss Road, I don't care who you are, you're gonna say crime scene. Just look at you 5 photos of Cuss Road, you're gonna say crime scene, because that's what it looked like. That's how they treated it. With that, yeah, on to the next. It's been a good discussion. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, thank you, Jack. Those are great comments. Dr. Silkman, if you wouldn't give us your wrap up.
Well, unlike Jack61 and Big Jeff, I don't use Reddit very often. I mean, I do read it, but I often don't go on and comment, because every time I go on Reddit, posts disappear, people disappear, if you know what I mean, Jack61. So
absolutely.
Yeah. I try and stick to podcasts like this, which I believe are extremely useful and very productive, and we do tackle hard topics. What I really enjoyed about this episode, again, is just the wide variety and wide knowledge skill of every one of the panel members here, and I'm really thrilled to be part of this discussion. And my take-home message for this particular episode is: those who find the forensic evidence control the narrative. And just think about that one. Thank you so much, guys. On to the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Silkman. And last but certainly not least, Kelly, if you wouldn't lead us out of episode 13.
I don't know how I'm going to top excuse me, I don't know how I'm going to top Dr. Silkman's parting message. That was perfectly summarized. In terms of this episode, I think it's awesome to go back to it. It's, for me, going back to the barrels, it's something that I haven't really explored. I've always just assumed and just accepted that there's funny business going on with them, and that there is a big possibility that there's swapping going on, or there's movement, or there's planting of bones in barrels that weren't originally there. So I never really kind of went deep into it. But then watching this episode, it's taking me back to the beginning. And I think that's where this whole discussing a murderer is such an asset to newcomers into the case and for the people that have been around forever. And that's just to take it back to the start and relook at everything that we have gone through before. And sometimes it's like we watch in this episode where Big Jeff saw something that he'd never noticed before, and that was as simple as the title on a book, which is Louvre Tracks. You find something new every time you watch it, and the fact that we all get to watch it as a panel, and we get to watch it with our people in the chat, I think it helps. It helps us keep the discussion alive. It helps us discuss and explore new avenues and pathways of our research. But it's also interesting because we are now watching it in hindsight, and we're seeing Kathleen and her team discuss about the law enforcement's involvement in this episode. Yet now she does claim that the burn barrel did contain Teresa's remains, and that was because of Bobby Dassey. So it is very interesting to watch the changing narratives from the defense side and the state. And I guess that's what I have to accept as well sometimes is, although it's a lot of to do with strategy and, got to get hearings and stuff like that, it's also, you've got to stay open because you've got to be able to adapt. When the new information come in, you should be able to go with that new information. Just because I always assume that law enforcement might have done it, I can't close myself up to the possibilities that with new information that Kathleen has gathered over the years, that there could be more to it than just law enforcement now. But the truth of the matter is it's looking more and more like Cuss Road plays a big, significant part to this crime. And for that, it's on to the next.
Well, thank you very much, Kelly. This has been a really great episode. So I want to thank all of you guys on the panel today, especially as like every week I end up learning more than anything. And I just want to say a shout out to everybody on the panel. I learned so much from you guys. I learned so much from doing this every week. My knowledge has increased on the case 100-fold since we started doing this, and we were wearing sweaters how many months ago there, Big Jeff. So I hope you got your nice sweater on again. So that's it for us today, guys. So for Kelly and Dr. Silkman and Jack and Big Jeff, this is Jeff Jones saying this has been Discussing a Murderer.